is bringing you reports from the heart of Congo, where Indian Army is deployed with United Nations peacekeeping mission. WION has spoken to officers, jawans and people associated with UN peacekeeping mission. WION brings you the report of the Indian Army and the way it is trying to stabilize Congo despite facing budget cuts. I'm joined in by Brigadier Vivek Tyagi, the man who is in charge of olives in Blue Cap. And yes, perhaps his area exceeds that of combined area of Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh. That's what he looks after in Congo. So how and in what way the challenges for the UN peacekeeping mission in Congo has evolved, and what has been the contribution of the Indian military?
First of all, Kartike, it's good to have your team amongst the Indian peacekeepers out here in the heart of Africa, thousands of miles away from India. Coming to your question about the challenges, challenges are in multiple domains. If you see today, the nature of conflicts has changed. It's very difficult to have consent of all parties to the conflict for peacekeeping missions. They have moved from peacekeeping to peace enforcement, robust peacekeeping. The UN itself is undergoing a lot of changes. Budgets are getting cut, resources are becoming minimal. One has to achieve more and more, cover larger areas of the country with lesser troops. And when you come within Congo per se and mission, the complexities have increased. The regime has its own interests. There are a large number of neighboring countries which have vested interests. Illegal armed groups have grown more than 70. Resources are such in Congo that there are a lot of parties which have their hands into it. And then, of course, is the dynamics of elections which were to be held, and therefore all sort of political engineering. So you see the challenges. And there is one more important I would like to add. And the challenge for a man in uniform to maintain that correct balance while pursuing his mandate, that he remains in connect with the population. He has to support the regime as part of the security sector reforms, and therefore can't be seen too aligned with any of the parties.
Tell me, what does work? What works? This Hind helicopter works, the attack helicopter works, or these planes work, or those attack helicopters work, or something which I saw when your military was playing football with the locals, the computer classes, English classes, or that work, or it's a mix of both?
First, I'll tackle the second half of your first question. You also were hinting towards the contribution by the Indians. So you see, historically, if you go, and I will talk only in context of Congo, right from 60s, that was the first part of the mission, 60 to 64. Then we move into the second phase, 2005 onwards. And all through, you see, we've been the largest contributor. If you see the entire missions, the cumulative contribution of Indians has been almost of 235,000 troops in 49 missions.
That's quite much.
So that is not just about our contribution. It's about the recognition of how well we connect with the ethos of peacekeeping, with the core values of UN. And therefore, now when we come in context of the various pillars as to how you progress these operations, so like in any such operation where you have such large number of stakeholders, the endeavors have to be a mix of everything. You have to do peacekeeping, you have to protect the civilians. Therein, you have to establish firewalls at times, you have to neutralize the armed groups, and therefore you have to use strong instruments of force application. You have to keep your linkages with the population, because ultimately you are here to establish peace for them, and therefore your community outreach has to be an important component, as is part of it in our endeavors in any part that is within our country itself. So you can't really say what is more important, and that is why you see in the UN environment it's a very close enmeshed functioning between the political, between the civil affairs, the humanitarians, the force. So together it is that we further the execution of the mandate.
But how has the challenges increased for the Indian Army? Of late, there have been attacks in Congo. The environment has vitiated because of a lot of cross-border activities. And the fact that the place has no roads, virtually, beyond the little cities.
See, of course, the infrastructure part, you will very well understand that all the regimes over the decades would have had certain element of intent. You know, if you wanted to keep the country divided, if you didn't want the East to be connected to the West, so that they could have a spirit of nationalism in them. So, of course, that is a larger issue. But as you were talking about how the complexities have increased, I just covered to you. One, the resource interests remain. Two, political engineering is gaining momentum because they're a part of the regime which doesn't want elections. There is the opposition parties who want to create instability and discredit the government. And then, of course, is the engineering of the armed groups. And when the engineering of the armed groups by these different vested interests happens, MONUSCO being one major player here in terms of we are here to establish peace and security, but that is not meeting the interest of many. And then, therefore, they would like to discredit us. They would like to target the blue helmets and thereby destabilize, thereby offset the efforts which are endeavoring towards lasting peace and stability.
A lot of women are being deployed as observers, and I noticed that a lot of women are serving as military observers. Is there a task? Is there a goal that Indian Army wants to put more women in crucial and important branches of military function?
You see, when we look at the force, there are two major components. One is the contingent. The contingents which are out there in terms of deployed in a grid, which are projecting into areas, tackling situations which are tactical in nature, which are on a daily basis. In addition, there is a very major component which is called the military observers and military staff officers. And therein, these people have the important role of reaching out to the population, sensing the situation on ground, sensitizing the various elements of the society. And therefore, they have to have that close connect. And therefore, to have lady officers as military observers strengthens this endeavor, because obviously their capacity and capability to connect with a large segment of the population is that much more. And therefore, the population also is that much more prone to reach out to them. And therefore, the entire sensing of the situation, what are the threats emanating, what are the various aspects of the conflict, the efforts of UN become that much better. And yes, we as a country are playing a lead role to ensure that this representation has increased manifold in last few months, and our representation is now recognized that India is one country which has almost worked towards a ratio of 15% representation within the military observers and military staff officers.
Goma Hill on one side overlooks the lake and on the other the town. It is strategically very, very important. Couple of years back, it was overrun by the local militia. Today, Indian Army is deployed on Goma Hill so that Goma town is never threatened again in Congo. This is Goma Hill in Congo, one of the most important strategic sites. It's top of a hill. On one side, you've got the lake. You have a deep harbor. It's one of the deepest lakes in Africa. It's called Lake Kivu. Goma Hill was occupied a couple of years back by the militants, so the job has gone to the Indian Army. Obviously, it works under the auspiciation of United Nations peacekeeping force, but Indians are the one who are holding this ground. So you have this vast, deep lake, and on the other side, you have the town. I'll go back to Lieutenant Colonel Jasmeet Singh, but you see the town. You see this town. You have an airstrip there. And you have Indians, the men in olive, guarding this town, the lake, which touches Rwanda, because one has to understand how porous the border is. I'll ask my camera person, Manish, to pan the camera to his right, and I'll show you how porous this area is. The mountain you see there, the first ridge, that is Rwanda. So imagine the first ridge is Rwanda. On the back of the town, you have a lake. And this town has to be stabilized by none other than men in olives at a time when you have got budgetary cuts. So you have a problem of budgetary cuts. For example, we had more than 20 bases, that the bases have been cut down. So which means that even the doctrine in terms of area domination changes. The troops have to be moved out more rapidly. You have got rapid deployable battalions also. But on all of this, I'll be joined by Jasmeet. Jasmeet, tell me, how important is this area for you people?
As you've already seen, this is a place which is the vantage point. It actually dominates the complete Goma town. Now all the critical assets, that is the harbour, the port, the airstrip, as well as the town, can be dominated in case we are holding on to this location. Also, all the communication, as you can see to your back, there are a lot of communication towers and the television towers. So it also is a communication hub from which all the communication of Goma town is.
Basically, you are basically telling me, you take this spot away, you actually take away the telecommunication, radio, all sort of electronic communication equipment, and you can actually jam them from the town.
Yes, because all the towers are located, because this is, as you can see around, this is the only vantage point, the highest point here from where the various communication towers are working. It was taken over in 2012-13 by the M23 when the M23 had come in. But now it is with the UN, and this responsibility has been entrusted to the Indian contingent to maintain and upkeep this strategic asset at Goma.
Thank you, Jasmine. So the bottom line here is that the peacekeeping mission is not about just staying in a garrison, holding a garrison. It's also about holding a town, holding a height, holding a view, and holding a position which dominates far-flung areas. And that's what this hill does for the Indian Army, for the United Nations peacekeeping forces. It dominates the view from the right, from the left, so that in future the hill cannot be taken again. Like weapons, food is also essential when it comes to army. Indian Army is serving in Congo, and the management ensures that the people who work in Congo, they get what they like to eat, which is essentially Indian food with garam masala and all the condiments which are related to the Indian subcontinent. Here's a report. Army cannot fight on half stomach. And this is true. And I am in Congo, and I'm here to find out as to how does Indian Army manages its own ration. Because ultimately, what I would like to know as an Indian is, how do they keep track of the garam masala, how do they keep track of their haldi, how do they keep track of the cumin, and then how do they keep track of what their soldiers eat, which are derived from numerous, or I would say diverse parts of India, from diverse regiments. On this I am joined by COB Commander, Lieutenant Colonel Mr. Amit Rawat. Please tell me, how do you outsource your food, how do you keep track of it in context with the taste of what we call the Indian cuisine, or what we call the South Asian food?
Generally, we have got a very well laid out of system of administration here in UN, where we get rations from various varieties of ration from various countries. Like you can just visit to the store. Here we have got rice from Vietnam. In fact, we get apples from China. Even I was surprised once I came here. We get ice cream from Italy. And similarly, we get dal from various other places. There are few things which come from even Pakistan.
Really? Can you show us what is coming from where?
Yeah, like this, you can see this basmati rice. This is a product of Pakistan. And one here.
Achha, this is product of Pakistan,
this
basmati.
And this
jasmine
rice is from Vietnam.
Okay. And what else? So this is a mini storeroom basically.
Yeah. So the only problem which we have got as an Indian here, like you see, Indian cuisine is little bit different. The difference, the things which we don't get here is basically the condiments. So for those condiments, the arrangement which we have done, once the rotation happens within 6 months, we get all the condiments which are not available here or which cannot be supplied here. Like haldi is there, then garam masala is there, various kind of masalas which are required for different kind of Indian cuisines. Those are not available here.
So basically you're saying that you stock them up. So lest, you don't have them,
Yeah. The things which are available here, we already get a list prior to induction. So whatever we don't get here as per the Indian cuisine and as per the eating habits of our own troops, that we get from India.
You have to show me as to what you are cooking today, and you have to show me what sort of quantity is cooked every day in terms of the soldiers who eat, and what sort of variety is there on a daily basis when you feed your jawans.
I'll now take you to the cookhouse here. We'll just go to the cookhouse where I'll show you.
It's right here.
Yeah.
That's your cookhouse.
Yeah, this is the cookhouse.
Okay.
Like you can see, we have got a well laid out, we call it bill of fare. Okay. That is basically menu, and which is laid down for the complete week. So as per the bill of fare, today we had mixed dal, which you can see here.
Mixed dal.
This has already been cooked. Okay. And this is for a strength of around 160.
Okay.
160 personals. Then we have got rice here.
Okay.
In vegetable, we have got this mixed vegetable, which you can see here.
And what about non-vegetarians?
Generally, as you can see, my battalion has got Gorkha troops.
Yes.
Most of them are non-vegetarian.
Yes.
So today we have got this anda curry for them.
Okay. Okay.
Which you can see here.
So I think the dinner is early.
Dinner, generally for troops, the dinner timings are between 7:30 to 8.
Okay.
Because after 8, generally they go for other duties, security duties, which for which they have to get deployed in night. And then by 9:30 their routine is off, because early morning they have to get up early for their PT, physical training and all.
Okay. So, you know, this was a peek into the way food is cooked for our army. And it's not as if the army is in, I would say, Delhi or any other part of India. Army is in, I would say, Congo. And the food is cooked to their liking. And food is cooked so that they feel at home for the fact that they are not at home. Sarvdhal Sthal of the Indian Army is a shining example of a fact that various communities can work together for the good of the nation despite belonging to different religions. And it is also a reminder to public actors back home that religion should not be used to polarize public opinion. Where people back home are fighting over religion, the way Indian men in olives, the men who are part of the United Nations peacekeeping force, practice religion, I think it should be an example for every Indian. Indian Army is faith secular. You look at this temple which they have built. You know, you have got a goddess in between. You've got a Mary's photograph. You've got a photograph of Guru Nanak, and if you see, you even have the motif of Islam. So it's not as if only gods and goddesses of religion of Hinduism are there. You have motifs of every religion, and I think that's the most beautiful part of Men in Olives. And I think Army in this way serves a very good example that all the faiths can be practiced. And we are amongst men who have been deployed in Congo, and this is how they practice their religion, and they practice it together. So you have Christians here, you have Sikh here, you have Hindus here, and you also have a place for Islam. And I think that's the beauty of Indian Army. Wherever they are in the world, whatever they do, whatever the task they have been given by the army, they make sure when they practice religion, it reflects the civilizational sentiments. And the civilizational sentiment of India is that every religion has a space here. Every religion is respected. No one is ostracized. And that's the beauty of our army. And I think people back home fighting must see this and understand the way army treats religion. It treats religion with equal respect and makes no discrimination. Apart from providing security and dominating and securing the area, Indian Army ensures that the local people benefit. And for this reason, Indian Army has engaged in creating avenues for local populations such as teaching classes for English, computer classes, and also funding orphanages. Take a look at my report.
These children eagerly await goodies brought by the Indian Army. They look happy, but their smiles and songs cannot hide the grim reality. They are left in this orphanage, which provides them with basic care. So now the Indian peacekeeping forces chip in to give a helping hand.
Very often and give out, for example, footballs, for example, stationery, for their overall development. Because if we make a promise, then we have to complete it, and the turnover of the units is in 6 months, in a year, and a new unit comes in, but the expectations stay. So that is why we don't do any promises, and whatever we say, we try to complete them.
The orphanage is built on a lava pit. A decade ago, the town was all but obliterated by a volcanic eruption. So what looks like a badly maintained road is actually solidified lava. One has no choice but to drive over it in order to meet the children. Despite having plenty of natural resources, the situation in Congo is pretty grim. About 10% of the population suffers from extreme malnutrition. Political violence has displaced thousands within and outside of Congo. Delayed elections have further fueled unrest in the country.
While patrolling, we can meet kids who are roaming around. Now, when we see those sorrows, when we get sorrows of those kids, we say we don't have something what we can do for you, but one thing that we can do, it is just to report these sorrows to somebody who can be able to assist you. That's why, if somebody will see these photographs, we are coming to him as Indian contingents. Please get sorrow of these kids. Help them. They don't have any place to deal. They don't have any food to eat.
This area is very, very, very small. We can't, the space is very small, so that we like to raise up in a good land and a good area on which we can get a largest place just for the game of the children. And we require a sponsor. For instance, India government should maybe help if they are able, or other countries.
Congo is also battling the issue of child soldiers, but many children whose parents become casualties of ethnic and political violence are unable to get the attention and care that they deserve. The Indian Army is doing its bit, but the world needs to do more.
Children are the worst casualty whenever it comes to violence, collapse of the state, or political instability. This is one of such orphanages in Congo where the steps taken by the government are inadequate. What UN can do is limited, but what is required is a civil infrastructure where kids are not given dolls but shown a future where they can rebuild their lives again. Congo is a rich nation. It is rich in resources, but people are poor because the government and the people in power have not ensured that the benefits of the resources percolate to them. And their story is represented in this invention of Chiku, which is basically a wooden cycle. And most of the Congolese use it to ferry people and transport goods around. Here's the report. You must have seen a moped, you must have seen a wiki. In India, you must have seen people in rural areas using water pump machine as an engine to transport people. But I don't think you would have ever seen a thing like this called Chiku. Now, Chiku is something which is very unique to Congo. Chiku is something which children you can play with. It is used to transport material, and Chiku is also mainstay of a lot of rural areas because Congo continues to remain unconnected. But let me tell you what Chiku is. Chiku is all made of wood. Now the only thing of rubber is the tire. Even the brakes of Chiku are like this. So what the people in rural Congo do, that they use Chiku to ply. So what they do is they will use a slope, put all their stuff here, and use the force of the leg to transport the material. And the reason for this Chiku being so prevalent is that 80% of the Congo is very, very rural, unconnected. The petrol is not available. So people make use of wood. And I think that's the ingenuity. When there is necessity, people come out with solutions. I'm joined by Colonel Ishan Dalal. Colonel, asking you, this issue of Chiku, is it really unique to Congo or it's prevalent in other parts of Africa?
No, it's quite unique to Congo and the areas around Congo. Generally, you might find it in one or two places, maybe in Rwanda to an extent, not much, because it's primarily because of the rural economy which Congo has and other means which are not available outside the towns of transport, that this unique contraption has been built by the Congolese. And as you already brought out, it's very unique in a sense that it is very versatile. It is used for transport of personals, it is used for transporting loads and lugging goods. You'd be surprised to know that this Chiku, present one which you have in front of you, can carry 14 bags of cement. I have seen it, people carrying 14 odd bags of cement. So it's a very robust means and a very, very, I would say, green means of transport that they employ out here.
So, this is what Chiku is. I'm not going to dare try ply this Chiku, but let me give you an idea and show you how heavy this Chiku is. This is made of wood, And now this is a slope. Now if I have to ply it, it takes great amount of strength. And imagine the control with 8 children or two sacks of rice on it, and you can imagine what will it take for you to ride this Chiku. With camera person Manish Srivastav, Kartikeya Sharma from Goma for WION.